Hello, so we're on day 10 of the narrative writing, and you're back with me. So you've had a look at the grammar in the text, so you should have a good understanding of adverbs and adverbial phrases, and relative clauses, and that figurative language, thinking about those similes, metaphors, and how to really bring your writing alive through that figurative language. Okay, so next week you're going to get on to planning and writing your own adventure story, and I've actually added in an extra day so that it takes 15 days for this unit. So on Monday you'll be planning your writing, but today we're on day 10, so we're going to have a look at some more examples of short stories, and then that should help you have lots of ideas for your own writing. And you can just brainstorm some ideas for your writing next week. Okay, so we're going to have a look at two different adventure stories set in the rainforest. So you can listen along to me reading them. I'd then like you to read them for yourself. So that might mean you replaying the video and pausing on each page, or you having a look at the resource pack PDF and reading that along. Okay, so you can listen to me reading, but I'd really like you to read these for yourself. So you can really think about the plot for yourself, the language that's been used, and give you lots more ideas for your own writing. Okay. So, Dinosaur Island. He was darting through the lush green jungle that could be seen creeping its way through the rocky valley as the sound of tiny, strange creatures buzzed in his ears. Sam was slowing now, pushing his way through the undergrowth as brambles caught his damp, loose clothing, branches whipped at his reddening, sweaty face, and the treasure he longed for grew closer and closer. "I'm nearly there," he muttered to himself. "I'm so close to the ancient treasure." The island not only hid his gold, but a great undiscovered danger. Cautiously stepping around the corner, he came face to face with the huge foot of a beast. Stumbling backwards in utter disbelief, he crouched behind a tree and held his breath. His mind began to race, and the knot that he felt in his stomach tightened. He hadn't anticipated sharing the island with a dinosaur. Who would? At that moment, Sam, who was beginning to panic, heard a gut-wrenching roar echo like thunder through the jungle, reverberating off every rock. He was surrounded by ferocious beasts on this plant-infested island, each of the scaly giants, hunting for their next meal. He crawled along the ground as he frantically searched for a way past. "I need to be quiet," he whispered. "One snap of a twig and the giant will know where I am." As he hid between trees, he grew impatient, especially when he noticed some pearly eggs which were beginning to hatch. The white shell on one egg cracked down one side. The second egg shook in the corner of the nest, as if something was fighting its way out, and the third egg, which had rolled and split in two, was revealing a slimy, tiny baby inside. Sam, who watched on in amazement, lost track of where he was and the threat that surrounded him until he saw the foot of yet another beast appear from around the corner. "Shh!" hissed an unknown voice. Then a hand wrapped around Sam's mouth and pulled him down behind a rock. "Don't make a sound," it whispered. Jake was now crouched down, staring at a small-framed girl dressed in full camouflage. Where'd she come from? Sam was completely baffled, but it was apparent that she knew what she was doing. The girl pointed in the direction of a cave opening and then hollered, "Run!" Rapidly sprinting, he made his escape. Sweat dripped from every part of his body, and the pain from running felt like 1,000 daggers in his side, yet he knew he couldn't stop. She was faster than him. If he wasn't careful, the dinosaur chasing them would be too. Fighting through the undergrowth with the powerful dinosaur's breath on his back, they made it to the mouth of the cave. At that moment, the two of them stood face to face with the beast and smiled, knowing the giant could no longer get to them. Sam slumped down on the ground in exhaustion. "I'm Ellie," said the mysterious saviour, who had appeared from nowhere and probably saved his life. "Are you okay?" I think so. Thanks to you," Sam replied, still quite breathless from the run. Ellie gave him a minute to recover before asking, "Why are you here, boy?" "My name is Sam, and I'd rather not tell you why I'm here." He was desperate to keep the treasure a secret. He would rather not share. "Considering I saved your life, I think you should tell me, and I could help," Ellie said. "Or I could always leave you here to fend for yourself." Sam weighed up his options. Although he didn't want to share, he really wanted to make it out alive. Sharing was definitely the better option. He explained about the treasure that he had been hunting for years, about the ancient maps that had led him to the island, and about the clues left by his great late grandfather. Ellie listened on in awe. Never before had she heard tales of such treasure or been aware of its existence. Together, like a pair of bloodthirsty hounds, they crept further into the darkness of the cave in hot pursuit of their treasure and ignorant to the dangers that laid beneath the surface. Okay, so when you read it to yourself, interesting to think about similarities between that and Treasure Hunt, the model text that you've been reading. Think about similar things in the plot, both of them looking for treasure. Think of similar things in the setting and the language. Did you spot all those adverbial phrases? In this one, some really nice use of semicolons when writing longer lists, lots of split speech. So have a look through and see if you can spot and think about some of those similarities. Okay, we're going to move on to the second one. A Rainforest Adventure. "Look at that beautiful bird," Pip exclaimed, her eyes shining in wonder. "Its feathers are like the colours of a rainbow." Her friends gathered quickly to where Pip was pointing. A lucky group of Year 6 children had won a trip to the Amazon rainforest after they had entered a writing competition at school. For 2 whole weeks, they would be exploring and learning about the rainforest. Pip and Freddie, who were both 11 years old, were in a permanent state of excitement. This trip was a dream come true. "Pip," Freddie whispered under his breath, "let's go quickly and explore away from the others. We might find something totally awesome." Tiptoeing quietly away from the group, the 2 excited children crept cautiously towards a dense, overgrown part of the forest. In the distance, they could hear their teacher talking animatedly about the wildlife, so they delved deeper into the jungle. Sticks crunched under their muddy boots. Screeching monkeys and birdsong filled their ears, along with the constant rasping of insects, which grew louder with every step they took. "Freddie," Pip hissed quietly, "I think we should turn back. We'll get lost out here." "Nonsense," Freddie confidently replied. "We're intrepid explorers. Come on." Freddie marched forward, head held high until, ahead of them, they could see what looked like large boulders standing bravely amongst the trees. Without saying a word, the children raced excitedly towards the enormous rocks when suddenly the ground underneath them disappeared. Before they knew it, they were falling faster, faster, deeper and deeper into the ground. Seconds later, they both landed with a crash onto a muddy bank, dust unpleasantly filling their eyes and mouth. Coughing and spluttering, Pip, whose heart was beating like a runaway train, scrambled to her feet. Freddie! Freddie, are you all right? Freddie appeared from beneath a pile of leaves, eyes wide like saucers. What just happened? He stammered. Where on earth are we? Nervously looking around, their eyes adjusted to discover that they were deep underground in a dark and musty-smelling cave with a roaring river raging through the middle. In the distance, small cracks of light started to appear, so both children clambered over the slippery rocks towards it. Illuminated from the light was a small carving hanging on the wall with a dusty inscription. To free yourselves from this cave, you must follow the song. You must be brave. What on earth does that mean? Wailed Pip. How are we ever going to get out of here? Before Freddie could reply, a beautiful melodic singing voice filled the deserted cave. Listen, hushed Freddie. What is she saying? She will help us get out. Straining their ears above the roar of the water, Pip's eyes grew wide as she understood the words. We have to follow the stepping stones in the river, she stammered, all the way out. It soon became clear that the only way out was to follow a specific pattern over the rocks in the water in order to escape from the cave. If they took one wrong step, they would be washed away with the powerful current. We can do this, Freddie determinedly exclaimed. I know it. With that, the two children looked into the angry water, dotted with stepping stones, took a deep breath, and began the pattern from the inscription. What felt like hours later, the exhausted children looked up to see daylight ahead. Their hearts flooded in relief. Freddie leapt safely onto the grassy bank and turned to help Pip. As Pip reached out to Freddie, her other foot stepped lightly onto another rock, which triggered a catastrophic reaction. The rock she was standing on started to sink into the water. Without a second thought, Pip leapt as high as she could and collapsed, shaking like a leaf, onto the bank where Freddie stood. Two children gasped at each other, horrified, as they watched all the rocks slipping away. Let's get out of here, yelled Freddie, and they raced out to find their group just the other side of the entrance to the cave. Ah, Pip, it's your turn to lead the group through the rainforest, smiled her teacher. Pip and Freddie stared at each other open-mouthed. Had they even noticed they had been gone all this time? The rainforest was even stranger than they had ever imagined. Okay, so that is two more adventure stories. So like I said, you've listened to me reading them, so I'd really like you to have a go at reading them for yourself, either from the video or from your packs, to just really understand and think about the plot. Okay, and then once you've done that, we're going to look back at this picture, and you can imagine all three stories that you know now being set in this place. Maybe it's a place filled with dinosaurs and dinosaur eggs. Maybe it's a place where secret holes open up in the ground for people to get trapped in. Okay, so we're going to use this picture to help us generate some ideas, and you might have some other ideas of your own. So you might use things that aren't in the picture, and that's great. This is just to help you. Okay, so when you've read through the stories again, we're going to look at this picture, and then I would like you to create a mind map of some different ideas for your stories. And hopefully one of these ideas you will think, yeah, that's a great idea, that's the one I want to use, and you'll do your plan of that in the next lesson, and then write your story about it. So I've got 3 different ideas for mine. So these would be 3 different stories, and I would write the one that I am most keen on. So I've got one story here where we've got children running away from wild animals and having to jump down the waterfall. So I was thinking of the top of that picture up there, having to jump over there, and that would be my main action. Do they survive? Do they not? What happens? Do they get swept up onto the side? So that's one idea. And then down here, I've got following a set of instructions up a temple where it's claimed the cure for COVID-19 is. There is a terrible thunderstorm. So I've put a bit of things about what's going on now, and I'm going to include that in my story. But in this one, as they're climbing up, there's a huge thunderstorm, lightning. Okay, lots of lovely description could be involved there. And a third idea, searching for the mythical golden parrot and being chased by hunters through the forest. So here I was quite interested by these very gold looking parrots, and maybe actually their feathers are made of gold and very, very valuable. So I've got 3 different ideas that I thought of, but I'm sure you could think of loads of different ideas for a great adventure story set there. So like I have done, final thing you need to do today is generate some ideas for your story. Okay, and then on Monday we'll have a look at planning that, thinking about our characters, our setting, language, plot, and all of those things. Okay, have a good day, have a good weekend, and I'll see you on Monday.